Welcome to Andy Nicole's podcast. Please like, share and subscribe.
Welcome to Andy Nicole's podcast. Press like and subscribe.
Welcome to Andy Decodes. Sit back and enjoy as we dive deeper down into the rabbit hole and into the unknown.
Hello and welcome to this special pre-recorded. I need to get that in before people think it's live, because it is very rare that I do pre-record now. Where I'm joined by the wonderful Chris Evers of Outer Limits magazine. If you haven't already subscribed to it, you can do. You can go onto my website and he's on the first page there. Just scroll to the bottom and follow the instructions. So welcome, Chris. You are on today for your new book, or your first book, shall we say?
That's correct. Yeah, I am, Andy. It's the first one that I've put together. I am actually working on my second publication already, around about 45,000 words done of that. So we'll see what happens with that one, whether or not I will have it published. But yeah, we're here to talk about the shape of things to come from elsewhere. Excellent.
Right. So obviously it's pre-recorded, so there's no one in the chat, there's nobody asking questions. It is going to go out on podcast. But what inspired you to write a book? Where did that come from?
Well, it's not too hard a question to answer, really. I was, as you know, I've been interested in the UFO subject since 1974, when I had my first strange encounter with a set of lights moving across the sky in East Yorkshire, or Humberside as it was actually called at the time. And I got involved with the subject, read up about it as much as I can, until round about, well, it was just shortly after the death of the much missed Graham Birdsall that I stepped back from the subject for a while. And that was actually for about 12, 13, 14 years. Yeah. So I thought, well, I've got to kind of do a refresher and read up on things, get my head into gear, know what's going on, what isn't going on, should I say. And I just wanted to refresh my own memory, bring things up to date. And what I did, it was actually around about this time last year that I decided to write a history of some of the sightings that we've had. As we know, we've had lots of different shaped sightings over the years. When we look at the Kenneth Arnold incident alone in 1947, he described two different shaped objects moving across the sky at Mount Rainier in Washington State. You know, one he described as crescent-shaped, and another, well, eventually he called them crescent-shaped, pie-shaped, and other different shapes, you know. And anyway, eventually the term flying saucer came out of that. But knowing that he described two different shapes, flying saucer doesn't cover every single shape. So I thought I'll do a bit of a swat up, you know, and read into things. And I just thought this would be quite useful, you know, not just for myself, who's been involved or interested in the subject for 50 years in 2024, but it'll also be quite interesting for new people who've just come into the subject, so they can make themselves familiar, make themselves aware with the many, many different shapes that we've had over the years. And as you know yourself, Andy, we've had orbs, we've had flying triangles, we've had Tic Tacs, or
Yeah.
what I call modern cigar-shaped UFOs, and we've had everything in between, from balls of light, we've had egg-shaped, we've had star-shaped, we've had tons and tons of different types of sightings reported over the years. When we look at the National UFO Reporting Center, which is only one organization in the United States, they've been around, well, the information I have is from November last year, which will now be 2022. And they had something like, over their 47 years of existence, have a guess yourself. How many reports do you think they've had over that time space?
Couple of million?
No, it's not that far. I wish it was.
Oh.
They've had 147,000 and so many hundred of reports investigated and just reported to themselves. Now, that's one organization in one country. What about Great Britain? We've had the British UFO Research Association and other local groups who've all had reports given to them, but a lot of this information isn't shared. But it just shows you all the many, many different types of bits of information that we're not sharing with other people, and we're keeping it to ourselves. A lot of people keep it to themselves. But I just wanted to do the book, as I say, to get the information out to people who are new to the subject and old. It's always good to have a refresher course.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, obviously, the name of the book as well is to do with the different shapes of the different crafts and whether they're, as you, in your words, nuts and bolts or organic. But
it's quite interesting, that, Andy, because some of them are reported as nuts and bolts craft. Some, as I mentioned, orbs. I mean, orbs, to me, it's just like a light, a ball of light which is floating around the sky. Now, looking at that, it doesn't look nuts and bolts. It looks electrical or organic, if you want to put it that way. But when I'm a little bit old-fashioned, I was recently called by actually Paul Sinclair in an interview I did with him, an old school ufologist. Now, I didn't know whether to take that as a joke or serious or whatever. But no offense was meant or anything like that.
No. Yeah.
But it was good to be called an old school ufologist, because I suppose I am, in that I want to look at things in a little bit more nuts and bolts-ish, because I'm not going to mention any particular cases, but some of the information that we get fed, to me, it's just a little bit too far-fetched, and if they are nuts and bolts craft, that opens up a whole different load of questions, like how are they getting here, what propulsion method do they have, and so on and so forth, so it opens up a whole different plethora of questions, if they're orbs or something like that. Again, what type of propulsion system are they using? There's a whole lot of different questions to be asked. Excuse me, no matter which way that we go.
Yeah. So what's your take on the orbs? I know we're going to be talking about the book, but I've just got a couple of questions in general. What's your take on the orbs? Because a lot of people are saying, like, when they see these orbs, they see whether it's faces or shapes or whatever inside the orbs. And obviously you've got different coloured ones, and apparently the different colours have different meaning.
Yeah. My first sighting back in 74, I'll be totally honest, it was just like a pinprick of light in the sky. Which I think I described that before when we've spoken. Of leapfrog across the sky. Completely cloudless night. So I couldn't say anything more than it was a pinprick of light. But my second sighting back in the 90s, round about, I can't remember the exact year right now, it was about 95, 96, 97-ish. That was an orb of light that came down the side of a hill on the River Humber on the south bank, just close to the British Aerospace factory at Brough in East Yorkshire. And I watched it come down. Now, if that was a nuts and bolts craft, how did it split into two and go in two different directions at the same time? So to me, was it ball lightning? Was it a different dimensional craft? Is again a whole plethora of questions that brings.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, and I spoke to you about it before as well. My first sighting, I was about 9 years old, so it was around late 70s, early 80s, and that, to me, that was nuts and bolts. It looked like two-tone metal right above my head. But then I've seen orbs as well, but they've not been up in the sky. They've been like closer to the ground and all that. It's like, for me, orbs and these alien craft, shall we say, to me, they've been two separate entities completely.
They very well could be, Andy. They very well could be two separate, completely different entities or craft, if you want to put it that way. But what we've got to remember is, do we drive around in the same cars nowadays that were invented 100 years ago? We don't.
Yeah.
These devices have changed over time. And that is, again, what I'm trying to emphasize in the book.
Yeah, that the evolution, I suppose, of non-earthly craft, maybe.
Exactly. And do they actually change the craft depending on what job it's going to do? For example, we've all seen cars. We all know what they look like. But a minibus is different to a mini.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You know,
yeah,
so
you wouldn't send Reliant Robin to go and deliver 20
you're showing your age there, mate. Most of the listeners and viewers will not know what a Reliant Robin
no
is.
idea. Yeah, but you won't use one of them to deliver 20 ton of gravel. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Different types of vehicles have specific types of vehicles have specific jobs. Yeah, I get where you're coming from on that. So yeah, that would make sense. But do you think then that there has been an evolution of craft then over the years?
To put it bluntly, yes, I do. You know, it's often said, I've heard reports, and I've been told that this is incorrect as well. There's actually more alien civilizations visiting the Earth than I'm led to believe. I've heard reports of something like 57 different varieties of aliens are coming to visit the Earth. You know, and other people. I was speaking with Jimmy Church a short while ago, and he actually emphasised there was a hell of a lot more. That there were something like 50 billion planets are in the known known galaxy, known universe, whatever. And you know, each sun has a planet around it. So you know, whether or not these planets have life on them, intelligent life on them, or life has been destroyed because some apocalypse created by life on that planet, or you know, or a natural disaster, we don't really know. But when you think about all those planets, they can't all have the same design built in for Dagenham, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, they've all got to be a different type of craft for the different type of work that they're going to be doing.
Yeah. So do you believe that any of these craft or alien species their origin is Earth and we just don't have any contact with them?
Now, what we've got to remember here is I'm going to go back now to 1997.
Yeah.
There was an extremely interesting article written by, again, the late Tony Dodd, who described different types of craft flying in and out of the ocean around the island nation of Iceland. And these have been going on in that area since at least the 1960s, according to Tony's article, which I do paraphrase in my book. And, you know, a lot of people have come to suggest that there is some form of intelligent species living under the water of our planet. Now, what evidence they've got for that, I'm not going to speculate upon, because that is beyond my pay grade, to be quite honest with you. You know, but if there is an intelligent life form underneath the planet, there could very well have some kind of craft, some kind of devices which they can fly in and out of the Earth's oceans.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that would make a lot of sense due to obviously the pressure in water. Because if they're going into the water, and whether they're going through another doorway to go below the seabed or the ocean bed, then it's all got to be depressurized. So then if they're going up into the atmosphere, same sort of thing, isn't it?
They're going to need the same kind of, in my opinion, they're going to need the same kind of technology, because
Yes.
it has to be airtight, it has to be watertight, it has to not leak oxygen out into the atmosphere or into space.
Yeah.
So there's not much difference, in my opinion, to these types of craft. There used to be a TV show back in the 1960s called Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and that had a device that could fly underwater and out into the atmosphere. That was on the submarine called Seaview, if I remember it correctly, and it was literally called the Flying Sub. Who's to say that there isn't some kind of intelligence under the Earth's oceans that can display this kind of technology?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's as long as it's airtight to whatever technology you use to do that, then it's going to be capable of, if it's capable of doing one, it's going to be capable of doing both.
Well, that's exactly true, and there are some information that suggests a US government facility in California has actually designed something similar, but it's such a size that it can be transported freely on the Californian highways and freeways system over there. So, again, all this information is in the book.
Yeah. Cool, thank you. Right, so go into the book now, because I'll just keep going off on tangents all day and I'll pick your brains at everything. So when you was writing the book, is there any particular part that you thought, you know what, I need to get this in? And it's more, it's a bit in and ahhing as whether to put that in, but you thought, you know what, sorry, I'm going to do it anyway.
No, I mean, the information that I discovered, there are some cases in there which are well known, but I haven't gone, excuse me, I've not gone mad on Rendlesham. I've not gone mad on Roswell, because in all honesty, they're done to death. So I've tried to pick out information that for me was new, which hopefully to the readers will be new. And I mean, I've covered Lenny Zamora, the Zamora case, which is like an egg-shaped device that he witnessed. I've covered another egg-shaped device in Iceland, but that is actually a lenticular cloud. It is actually a photograph of that. So we have to be careful of what we say is ET devices or flying saucers. We've got to investigate things properly. But there is one particular case which I found quite interesting, which is, again, it's in the first part. I think it's in the first chapter, if I remember correctly. It talks about an ex-RAF intelligence officer from the Second World War, who in 1967, he'd retired from the RAF by then, and he was out one morning, and he's walking his two dogs on the Moyne Downs in Devon. And he's walking his dogs. A wind picks up from somewhere, and it gets a bit windy and a bit blustery, a bit like today, actually. People, know. Anyway, he actually decides to get himself out of the wind, and he sits down, or he lays down in a delve, in the terrain. And while he's laid there, he's looking up at the sky, and he sees something in the sky which catches his attention. Anyway, I won't say what that is, but he watches this for about 5 or 10 minutes, then it just disappeared. But at the same time that disappeared, something else came into view, and it seemed to drop down towards him. And anyway, he's watching it, and eventually he watches that for 22 minutes. It's flying against the wind.
Yeah.
So it was obviously something under control to fly against the wind. And anyway, it eventually disappears, and he reports it. That now the MOD get wind of this, and they decide to go and interview him. And anyway, they put a report out, and A.W. Brooks was this gentleman's name. And they put this report out saying, believe it or not, he'd fallen to sleep. And it was a floater in his eye, a dead piece of something in his eye, which was floating around, which he witnessed. Now, if he was asleep, I've never been able to see anything while I'm asleep. So how
No.
come he could see this floater? But, you know, nonetheless, he was very unamused with what they said, he'd actually seen. So the book is full of cases like that. This, and at the same time, this was around about October the 25th, 1967. The UK was undergoing a flap. Now, if you don't know what a flap is, then please look it up. But it's it's a series of events. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the day before A.W. Brooks had his sighting, we had sightings in East Sussex. Right across the all of the south of the country. On the day after his sighting, October the 26th, so 3 days of different sightings. We had more cross-shaped sightings seen. So all these were witnessed on the 26th. I think there was 5 police officers who actually witnessed something, in 5 different cars, and it was chased along country lanes at 80 miles an hour. Now, again, whoever is in charge, whoever's policing all this information, decided to say it was the planet Venus. Now, I've never seen the planet Venus flying along at 80 mile an hour, 40 foot off the ground.
No. I think you'd notice that as it.
I think you would.
Gravity would tear you apart, I reckon.
So, again, the book is full of all this kind of information.
Yeah. So, is there any? Because obviously, as you're writing the book, you're researching, I suppose, at the same time, like going over stuff. Did any of the cases that you was writing about bring anything new to light? It's like, did any new?
No, because a lot of the cases were new to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you've been in it 50 years or 60 years or 10 years or 2 years. There is always something new that you can get out of information, that is shared. But a lot of my cases that I looked at and I've resourced for the book are actually, they've got links in them where the people can go and check. A lot of the reports that I've used have actually come from newspapers and other sources, such as newspapers. I've shared this information out. It's not hidden information. It just needs people to dig. Don't accept what you've been told on Facebook, or MeWe or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Investigate things yourself and look into these things yourself, and I'm not a religious person, but there's a scripture which says, make sure of all things and hold fast to what is fine. And if you do that as a researcher, there's been even times when I've researched in the past where I've actually asked neighbors about, people who've, how would you get on with your neighbors? Is he all right? Blah. I'm thinking I've lied a little bit. I'm going to I'm moving into the area, blah, blah, blah. Just to try and get information out of people. Oh, you don't want to live next door to him or whatever, But I've looked in for information as best as I can to get a good all-round perspective of cases.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good way of doing it, and that way you're filtering out the crap, so to speak.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the dross, basically, which is it seems to me to be that nowadays a lot of what I would call dross, not saying it is, I'm saying I would call it dross.
Yeah.
A lot of the dross does seem to get out into the public domain nowadays, where in reality, when we need to be more selective of what we're taking on board as investigators and researchers. Thankfully, my days of actually researching investigations have long gone. I'm more of as you know, Andy, I'm more of a publisher of a magazine, PDF-based magazine now. Yeah.
So, with the book, obviously, I've got my copy here just to prove, and the wonderful Chris has even signed it for me. Thank you so much for that.
That's all right, my pleasure.
Is there anything in particular that you want to talk about with the book that you want to get out there for people watching?
In reality, it is an informative book, and it is. I'm not going to lie, it is pretty cheap as well for a publication of this type. In pounds, it's just over £11. So it does make a good present, good Christmas present. It's cheap enough to buy yourself, and there's plenty of reading in there. In the book itself, there's something like 60 to 70 different cases which I mention. There's even one case, I think it's from 1954 in Italy, where we have such an amount of witnesses to one singular event that it cannot be denied. It was actually a football game between Florentina and their local rivals, whose name I can't even pronounce in English, never mind in Italian. Anyway, it was a football game, and the stadium had 10,000 spectators. And what actually happened is the game in the first half was just a normal football game, and second half started and it all changed. What was seen, something strange was seen moving across the sky. And it was so different, so strange, that the referee even, wrote about it in his match report. So it must have been something quite spectacular for that to happen. It was described variously as a cigar-shaped craft. It was disguised as like spiders actually were shimmering or flying across the sky, because it is it is known that some spiders fire webs out to actually fly themselves along in the wind and so on and so forth. But these were quite high. Now, I've never known spiders be at this height. Anyway, it came to be that this was reported. It was investigated by the local university. What we now call angel air seemed to come down from this craft in the sky. And plenty of witnesses saw this. Even one who played for the 1954 Italian World Cup team witnessed it. We have a young lad who was in the crowd at the game, who was still alive around about 5 years ago now, and he actually said he viewed it as something extraterrestrial. Now, this event became so famous back in the day that it actually inspired one young lad who lived in London at the time by the name of David Jones. Anyway, David Jones grew up and he went on to become known as, believe it or not, David Bowie. Now, we all know how much David Bowie was influenced by the aliens with, his Ziggy Stardust character, his Aladdin Sane character, and so on and so forth. And he played in the movie The Man Who Fell to Earth, and I point all this kind of information out in the book. So there's plenty of background information in there for people to read, and there's also there's a little bit of information in there about me as well, about how I became interested in the subject, so there's plenty to read. It'll keep you awake. Well, hopefully.
That's good. That's definitely a bonus. So so as you're writing, and you've done all the research and that, is there anyone, you don't have to go into detail on it, but is there any one particular account that stands out above all the others?
Well, it's actually those two accounts that I've mentioned. The A.W. Brooks account from 1967 and the Florentina football game account from Italy. Even Robert Pinotti, the Italian ufologist, is quite enthralled by that one case. The Florentina football game. It's those kind of things that stand out for me. But we've even got other cases. I don't just talk about modern events. I talk about, one of the first flying cross cases was around about the year 325 AD, where we have Emperor Constantine, who claimed that he witnessed a cross in the sky, and that later that night he had a dream which said that if you go into battle under this sign, I will protect you and make sure that you win. Now, it sounds a little bit far-fetched, but, what if he was just using that to kind of unite the Roman population behind himself? And we do know that Constantine was quite instrumental in setting up what will become known as the Catholic Church. And the term Catholic isn't anything special. It just means universal, or the universal church.
Yeah.
So so we know he's quite prominent in setting that up. We come forward in time. Remember, this was a flying cross, so the flying crosses are all in the first chapter. If you come a little bit further into the book, we've got a case from round about 1200 in Japan, where a monk was going to be beheaded. I don't know what he'd done. I don't know why he was going to be beheaded or anything. But there was people witnessed a large silver flying moon-like object in the sky. Now we know there was no dirigibles, no balloons, no moon. There was moons, of course. We witnessed this flying moon in the sky, so we know that it can't have been anything like that. Certainly not an aircraft or anything from outer space. What did they see then in round about 1200? But it was so startling that the monk who was going to be beheaded actually walked away from the execution completely free. It was given a pardon because people viewed it as something completely startling. So I do go back over the years as well of various different types of sightings in the book.
Yeah. So do you go back to, Max, I'll have a question, to any of these cave drawings or cave paintings that they found from God knows how long ago of what was witnessed?
Could you repeat that, please, Andy?
Sorry. So do you mention anything about these cave drawings where people are looking like what looks like an astronaut or an object in the sky? Do you go into
sorry, mate. What I'm actually doing is concentrating on the different, not astronauts or anything like that, or ET visitations. I'm just concentrating on sightings of UAPs, UFOs, orbs, blah blah blah.
Yeah. No, cheers for that. Yeah, I wasn't sure. That's why I asked, because obviously I've not had a chance to read all of it. So, can you? Oh, sorry, someone's letting fireworks off in garden next door. I wondered what it was. Reading red and blue light going off. So I know you said you've started writing your second book. Is it a continuation of this one, or is it completely different? Can you mention anything?
It's basically, I'm looking at the subject of USOs, unidentified submersible objects, which is actually an old name for them because they are actually trying to reinterpret them, unidentified underwater objects or unidentified underwater phenomena. So they're trying to rename them. And I think they do this on a regular basis. It went from flying saucers to UFOs to UAPs, and they do this in the authorities around the world. It doesn't matter where you are. They're doing it, I think, to hide information from prying eyes.
Right.
So the second book is going to be about the unidentified submersible objects, but I'm not just covering UFOs in it. I'm covering things like alleged underwater cities. Alleged anything to do with lakes, water in general. I'm trying to get as much information into it as I can about that kind of subject.
Yeah. No, cool. So going back to this book, The Shape of Things to Come. So with these, because obviously it's like people's encounters and a bit about yourself. Is there any mention? I'm going to dip into the subject of cryptids. Does anyone mention not just aliens, like whether it's a small greys or tall greys, but is there any mention of cryptids, i.e. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Dogman?
No, not at all. No. As I say, I'm just concentrating on the UFO field with this.
Yeah.
Even though we do know of reports where cryptids have been seen at the same times of UFOs have been seen. And again, this goes back many, many years. I think the only one that may, if I remember correctly, may slightly mention something strange is the Lonnie Zamora case. Because if I remember that correctly, outside of the egg, he claimed to have seen some alien-like beings standing around it as he drove up, and then they got in and flew off.
Yes. Yeah. Was that the one on the had 3 feet, didn't it? 3 legs that come down?
Yes.
That's the right one, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, Zamora was chasing a speeding car on the road in I think, I can't remember where it was, but it might have been Texas. And he actually noticed a bright flash And when he saw this, he turned off and went towards it, and it was an egg-shaped device, kind of like that shape. I think it was on 3 legs, standing in the desert, and I think that's when he witnessed. He claims to have witnessed beings or people around it.
Yeah. Because I think if it's the same one, he witnessed that they got back inside, the legs went up, but the egg didn't drop; it stayed where it was and then shot up into.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. I thought it was. So, what out of all the accounts that you've written about, what's the strangest shaped UFO?
Oh, God. Well, they're all, when you think about it, they're all strange, because none of them have any. They're not, to me, that they're not necessarily aerodynamic. A lot of them don't have wings or aerofoils that will aid in the lifting of the craft in the Earth's atmosphere. But there's a story of a young lad. Actually, now you mention it, I've just remembered this. He claims to have witnessed people or some kind of humanoids around something that landed close to his home. So I've just remembered that, Andy. Sorry about that. But there are many different strange shapes that we wouldn't associate, with actually flying, being able to fly. When we look at the New Fork explanations, they've even had things like teardrop shapes and triangle shapes, and they've had, when you look at teardrop shapes alone in that 47 years of their reports, they've had 1,213 different reports of teardrop shaped craft. Now, how does a teardrop shaped craft fly?
Well, can I add one onto that? Because I've actually seen what I think I've told you about this before, and I've spoke about it on the show. It's like a teardrop shaped, bigger, I'm going to say plasma, and it is dropping smaller plasmid balls, but there's each one the teardrop shape, and it was one, and the time in between each one was the same. It wasn't like 4 seconds and 10 seconds, and it was 2 seconds, and just one after the other. But the bigger one at the top didn't lose volume; it stayed the same size and the same shape constantly. And I must have watched about 8 drop down from it.
Again, we've got to ask the question: how was it? What was its propulsion device? There's even another account of which again is in the book. We have another account of a large, what looks like a square shaped device flying over the English Channel. And this was, I always get these years mixed up. I don't know if it was 22 or 2019. But anyway, this device is flying over the English Channel, and it was actually caught on filmed footage. And, there's a picture of it in the book. And while it's there, it's just kind of like hovering. It's stationary. Now, what kind of propulsion system is needed and used to power something like that and hold it stationary in the sky? People said, oh, it's a drone. But no, if it's a drone, it's massive, absolutely massive. Because, when you look at, your laptop, your screen on your laptop, if you can just imagine like a small area smack bang in the center, that's how big it looks away from the photographer on the image. Now, if that is something that is a drone, it must be bloody massive to be that big on the picture. But I've done a close-up of it, and if you look at the close-up, it might not come out too great in the actual publication, but if you can get a copy of this picture, you can see it's either triangle shaped or square shaped. I think that was 2019. If you come forward to 2022, remember that one's over the English Channel. I have another report from Conyers in Georgia in the USA, where a very similar shaped device was seen over this town in America. Again, people said it was a drone, but it can't be. What is it? It's going against the wind again. It's moving against the wind. And I think You know, the first image that I've just mentioned, the square shape of the English Channel, kind of coming on the film, I think it was from the right-hand side. And obviously in a book, I can only use still images.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
coming from the right-hand side. And this other device was just moving against the wind. And, you know, again, what propulsion system are they using? You know, some people say electromagnetic, but surely with electromagnetic, you'd hear some kind of humming noise or something, you know, because
Yeah.
electric motors need, well, they make a whirring noise as far as
Yeah.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
So you'd hear something. Again, that was 2022. So why is it a similar or the same craft appearing over the English Channel, then 3 or so years later appearing over America, where they're coming from?
That's it. That's a question, isn't it? Where? Well, it's a double question, isn't it? Where are they coming from and where are they going? It's
Yeah.
like anything in the paranormal world.
Absolutely.
I
And we
think.
can add a third question into that as well, Andy. What do they want?
Well, yeah, I suppose that there's a lot more answers, whether they're answers, more guesses than anything.
Yeah.
Coming observing us, they're
Yeah.
just passing through. It's a stop off point. They're coming to take over. It's they was here before us. There's a lot more answers to that, but
Yeah, but I've got to say that a lot of these answers are theories. There is a lot of good theories out there, but again, they're only theories. They're only theories until they can be proved scientifically. You know, so at the end of the day, we've got to encourage more of the scientific communities to get involved with what is going on. We have to encourage that, and we also need more whistleblowers to come forward with information to share to the public to help to get the information out. Those of us who already believe, well, we already believe. You know, perhaps we don't need disclosure as such, but at the end of the day, you know, there is something going on which is unexplainable, and it has been going on. In my opinion, we've had these kind of visitations for millennia, not decades. Excuse me, not decades or you know or years. We've had this kind of thing for millennia.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, totally agree with you. Like you were saying before, I know you've not put it in the book, but you've got all these cave drawings of things coming out of the sky and stuff in the Bible and on the stained glass windows in churches and other religious buildings. So it's got to come from somewhere. Someone can't just, we'll put this in, and then 10, 15,000 miles across the earth, someone else is doing a similar thing. It
That's
just
right.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, as you know, we've got the Aboriginals in Australia who have done some really crazy drawings, you know, of different types of creatures, which can, some people suggest that these rock art, these paintings that they've done, you know, represent some kind of visitations that they've had at the time. Something was put on Facebook quite recently. I don't know where the painting is from or whether it's the real deal, but you know, what looks like an ancient prehistoric painting of what looks like a round shaped craft with a dome on top on the wall of the cave. You've probably seen it yourself quite recently, Andy.
Yeah, it's like, so how can you make something up like that? Cause they say that you can't think of might be wrong on this, but you can't think of something unless you've already seen it.
Yeah.
Or it's really difficult to do. There's a certain part of your brain that does that, and only a select number of people have the ability to do it.
That's right. The you know, the thing is, I'm not saying this image what we've just talked about is the real deal, but I'd like to see a bit more information, you know, more some kind of scientific answer to what it actually is. And, you know, it would be great to think that these devices, you know, have been visiting the air for millennia, basically. But that one particular painting, even though we've mentioned the Aboriginal drawings and other cave drawings and so on and so forth, you know, they've even been, I don't know if it was chiseled into the stonework, but we've had alleged helicopters depicted in tombs
Yes.
in Egypt and so on and so forth. Where
Yep.
do these things come from?
Yeah,
Exactly.
the little figures. Yeah.
And we've had what
Was
looks
it-
like, that little aircraft from South America or
Yeah, was
Mexico.
it?
I can't remember.
Yeah, that looks like the space shuttle. That was in
Yeah.
Eric Van Daniken's
Yeah.
book, Chariot. Is it Chariots of the Gods?
I think it could be.
I
could
think
be right.
I've got it somewhere, but
It's
sure.
a long time since I've read that, so I couldn't be 100% certain.
I'm sure
But
it's
you
that.
could be right.
Yeah, right.
So all these shapes all add up to, something strange that is going on, which I've tried to cover as much as I possibly can in the book.
No, that's all good. Right, should we go for a quick break?
Yeah,
Or
we
free
can do.
break, and then we'll carry on with some more talking about the book.
Okay, no problem.
Awesome. See you in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, and we are back. So I'm still talking to Mr. Evers about his new book, The Shape of Things to Come from Elsewhere. So thank you, Chris, again for joining. Really do appreciate it. Still got a couple of questions for you. First one is, do you have any accounts of crafts that have been witnessed that have been two-dimensional, that have got no depth to them?
No, I don't have any.
Nothing.
I've tried to concentrate on the nuts and bolts kind of things more than anything else. So I don't have any kind of two-dimensional encounters in the publication. That's not to say I don't believe in them.
No.
But I just, for some reason, I didn't cover them. I mean, once you start opening up when you start diving into the rabbit hole, as we know, it
Yeah.
can lead off into different directions.
Yeah.
So I had to put a limited amount of information into the publication.
Yeah. So I suppose if you stick to one genre, it's just straight down
Yeah.
the middle, and you're
Yeah.
not tempted to
Yeah.
veer off. No, I was just wondering because people have said that they've seen like it could be part of a craft, and maybe we're not seeing it in the full dimension because it's from a different dimension, so we can't see the fullness of it, the complete shape of it.
I'm not saying that I do not believe in these
No.
different dimensions that people talk about, but what I would like to see again is more specific evidence to prove that these different dimensions actually exist. Again, it comes down to theories more than anything else, you know. So I've tried to concentrate on things that have been seen in the everyday, and not, you
like
know,
solid matter. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So my next question, obviously, it's back to the book again. What do you consider was the most difficult bit of writing this book? Obviously, with it being your first one, mine would have been where do we start?
Yeah. What I thought I would do was start talking about the CE, the INEC scale of encounters, basically, because most people think it finishes at like Close Encounter 3, you know, maybe up to Close Encounter 5. You know, we've had Stephen Greer talk about that quite a lot. But there are actually, which are mentioned in the opening part of the book, we can actually go up to CE8.
Oh,
you know, so have a read of it. I'm not going to tell you any more
no.
than that.
I will
Have a read of it.
it.
You may agree, you may disagree, but you know, they're all interesting, different categories. You know, but just actually, while I think about it, Andy, while we're doing this, we're actually I had a message through today that the book is actually in position 2 and position 3 on Amazon at the moment of bestsellers for this kind of publication. So while I'm here, I just want to thank everybody who's gone out of the way to purchase a copy. You know, and I will say that I am not sideways by that, to be quite honest. I'm quite surprised that the amount of people that have bought it to get in that position. But rest assured, all the funds that I receive from doing this will help to publicise the next Outer Limits magazine conference, which is in September this year. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Andy.
No, well done, Chris. Because I couldn't even know where to begin writing a book.
Well, what I did, I thought if I talk about myself, you know, and how I got into the subject, etc. You know, it actually changed because I was just going to cover the full subject from the Kenneth Arnold site in 1947. And then I thought, no, hang on a minute. Everybody's done that, you know, from A to Z, or Z if you want to be American. You know, we've all done that. We've all covered it. We've all spoke about it. So why not just look at the different types of shapes? And that's why I thought, well, yeah, it's more of a refresher for me to remind me of the different types of shapes that have been witnessed over the years. So, you know, that's kind of like where I thought I'm going to go in this direction. So what I did, the first ones I looked for, because I was already aware of the Emperor Constantine sighting from round about 300 AD. And I checked that up on the internet and see where that would lead me. You know, so I found some information on Google, I found some information on Wikipedia, and I just kind of like worked at it all, gathered as much information as I can. But if you notice through the book, it doesn't go in any specific timeline. It just goes in kind of like the same order that my head thinks about things.
All right.
So I apologize to everybody for that.
Here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
A bit like mine. Yeah. So did I know? Was it Philip Mantle that published it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So, other than you, did you have anyone else help write it, or was it?
There's a foreword in there which I asked Peter Robbins if he'd be kind enough to write. And thankfully he did, you know, and I'm very, very grateful for the extremely kind words that he's actually put in the book, you know,
Yeah.
and how he's actually described me. And I'm not going to go into that. People can read that themselves if they wish to do so. I'm also quite grateful for the words that Malcolm Robinson wrote when he reviewed the publication earlier. I think it was earlier this month, around about the end of November, beginning of December, he reviewed it. And he basically said it should be on everybody's bookshelf in everybody's library. And I was just, again, I was, you know, I had to ring him up and thank him for that. So again, for that, Malcolm, thank you very much for your lovely, lovely, kind words, and Peter as well for the work that he put into the forward. Other than that, everything's put together by myself.
Yeah. So so I'm guessing you enjoyed writing the book.
No.
Oh.
No.
I'm
going to be completely honest. I'm going to be completely honest, Andy. When I was at school, which is a few decades ago now, me and my English teacher did not get on.
Right.
I did not like the I will call him a gentleman because we're in public, but I did not like him at all. And to be honest with you, if I could find an excuse not to attend his classes, I would.
Yeah, you get
know, and that would be like just walk out of school because I can't be doing with the guy.
Yeah.
So I walked out of school. So all I will say is thank God for Microsoft Office and the spell checker and the grammar checker and everything. So thank God for all that lot. And I am grateful though to people like Philip Kinsella who actually give me a proofread. You know, so again, thank you to everybody who's been involved.
Yeah, no, it is a good community. The UFO in the UK, I think, because like these people that you've just named, once you meet them and chat with them, like yourself, to me they become good friends. And
absolutely, yeah. They're I mean, the Kinsellas I've only really known since I got back involved in the subject round about 2015, and you know, the other people like Philip Mantle, I first met in 2002, I think it was. It was at the last ever UFO magazine conference, and I spent an afternoon. Forget all the lectures, you know. I spent the afternoon talking to Philip at the time. People like Malcolm Robinson. We used to exchange paper-based publications back in the mid-1990s. You know, I used to do a paper-based publication called Faster Than Light magazine, again, because I thought that was how they traveled, you know, so I thought I'd name it after that.
Oh, yeah. Fine.
So, you know, so I've known quite a few of them, quite a few years, which is a good thing. And they are there to help and support, you know, and I've made new friends like yourself. I've made people like David Marley, you know, the Kinsellas, Ronnie and Philip, people like David Young, you know, Paul Sinclair. I've known Paul again since the mid-1990s when he approached me about events that were going on at his own property at the time in Bridlington. I won't go into that or anything because it's quite a few years ago now, and Paul's done enough talking about that. And if you want to get his book, Night People, it tells you all about that in that publication anyway. So I've made a lot of good friends, a lot of people you don't meet from year to year, maybe at a conference or something, but you still class them as friends because you know you have a similar interest, and you're all looking for the same answers to what the hell is going on, basically.
Yeah, and it's not just you talk about it and that's it. You kind of like you said, you might not keep in touch every day or even every month, but you keep in touch like we do. Well, are you coming on? Yeah, blah blah blah, and we have a bit of a laugh about it as well. We don't just talk about the book and UFOs and all that. We have like, what have you been up to, sort of thing, and get to know each other as well, I suppose.
Yeah,
which I think is all part of it. I think it's got to be to build the community, because it's all right knowing of someone, but unless even if you only know them a little bit, I think that makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
And it keeps that community in the
Excuse
right
me a
place.
second, Andy, while I get a drink. Up a minute.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, mate, I'm back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm just saying it keeps that community at that level, that nice level of we know each other sort of thing. Do you know?
Yeah, you're aware of each other's
Yeah, that's it.
ideas. You're aware of each other's beliefs, basically. You know, what I like about the UFO community that I'm personally involved with is that we don't always agree. We don't always think the answers are the same, but we can agree to disagree. We don't
Yeah.
get involved in any slagging matches or anything like that, because
No, but
everybody's opinion, everybody's entitled to have one.
yeah,
Simple as
and
that.
and that's not a bad thing, because if everyone thought the same thing, well, what's the point of carrying on? If we all believe it's this, then we all agree that it's that, and then what's next from that?
Yeah, exactly.
It
We're all
kind of,
investigating this in our own ways,
yeah.
and it's a fascinating subject, and it's one that I've been fascinated with now, getting on for 50 years, and I can't believe that, to be honest with you. That's frightening.
Saying nothing. No, it's
Hey, remember, I've got a beard here. I won't be bringing you Christmas presents next year.
In mind. It's that, as you know, I've had different UFO encounters, from whether they were orbs, a big metallic ball in the sky, a light that ripped open the sky, went through, and it closed behind it, nuts and bolts above my head.
It's quite interesting that you should mention a light going through the sky. My brother, my brother and his son and the son's friend, about a week before Christmas, 2023, they were driving up towards, I think it was Whitby, and they're approaching Whitby, and they actually saw what can only perhaps be described as a flash of light below the clouds in the sky. Now, when I say a flash of light, it wasn't like a flash, and I don't know if you saw that properly on there. It wasn't like a blue flash. It was like a line of light traveling through the sky, which the witness in the sky,
That's the same as what I'd seen.
So there you go.
That's strange, because I always think about this, because what I originally thought it was, and then after interviewing a couple of people, and they've said stuff, it's like it's triggering other things that happened that I didn't think about at the time, but I'm thinking about now, like 25 years later.
Yeah.
So it was a blue streak that, like, horizontal, wasn't at an angle. It was like, say, it was 0 degrees.
Yeah.
So it was going from left to right, and then that was electric blue. It then lit up bright red, like fire engine red. The line, whatever made the line, went through the red bit, and then it all closed behind it, like it was a zip in the sky. I'd say it was about at least 2-3 miles away from where I was, and the height of it, the only way I can work it out is, when you see a plane and it's at the highest altitude and you can see the vapor trail.
Yeah. That can be anything from 25,000 feet up. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't quite as high as that. I'd say, I know it might sound stupid, but I'm just trying to get this perspective of what it is between. And when you see an aircraft that's low enough so you can tell that it's a plane, you can tell it's made out of metal, it's got wings, it's got a tail, but there's no vapor trail. It was kind of like in between the two of them. So I don't know what height that they fly at, when you can make out that it is definitely a plane, whereas the other one is just like a white dot with the trail behind it.
Well, I don't know what the cloud base was, when my brother and his son and friend actually saw this. But, again, it wasn't described as like a flash, like sheet lightning or anything like that. Just a single white line going across the sky, which by the time he'd seen it and he'd turned to look at it and pick his camera up on his phone, it had gone. So there's no images of it or anything like that. Just gone.
Yeah. Well, mine was just, you see the lights behind me, the red where that mask is, it was that colour red, and then this colour blue.
Yeah.
So it's like two complete extreme colours.
Wow.
It didn't even blend in. It was solid and solid, and then just nothing. Clear sky, So I couldn't even. That's why I struggled judging the height, because there's no clouds.
Yeah, so very. What other experiences have you had then, Andy? Let's just turn this turn this round a little bit here, because I want to interview you.
This is the creepiest one, and it just it gets under your skin. So when I lived in Milton Keynes, and all the different stuff going on, I was in that one house, and I was seeing shadow people, full body apparitions, growling outside the bedroom window, all that stuff. So I know it was the middle of summer because we had rabbits, and there's in a double-decker hutch outside, so you could see it from the living room window. So be able to stick your head out and check and make sure there's all right, no foxes have got in and tried eating them. Yeah. So what I'd do, I think I was off work, and whatever it is, either I'm sure I was off work for the week, so I'd go out in the morning, check that they've got food, they've got water, they need their cleaning out, new hay and straw and all that. So I'd gone out, and I stood in the garden. I had a coffee as well, and it's a nice day. I had shorts and a t-shirt on. It's quite warm it's about 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30. And you just get a feeling that something's watching me.
Yeah,
it's one of them. So the houses were in a row. Then you had the back garden. Then there's a row of trees. Then it dropped down to the A5, which is known as Watling Street. So this is a new bit. This is a bypass bit that goes around, like going north to south, at the back of Milton Keynes. Mm-hmm. And I thought, when you can then pinpoint where it is. If you just stand there and concentrate. I just looked up to what would be like 10, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And there's a tiny dot in the sky. I'd say just looked like someone's got a ball bearing and just gone and just put it there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So I'm looking up at it. I'm looking back, doing what I do, look back up, and it's still there. And it's like, this is a bit creepy now. I just carried on doing it. I kept looking at it. So this is a full story. I've shortened it when I've done it in the past. So I was there about 10, 15 minutes. I was going in and out of the house, getting the food, getting them fresh water and giving them hay and what have you. So the last bit that I did, I looked up and it's still there. I thought, right, that's proper freaking me out. It hasn't moved, hasn't got nearer, hasn't got closer. Size, colour, nothing's changed. It just looks like a metal ball in the sky. So anyway, didn't think anything of it. Carried on doing what we did for that day where we went out, went shopping, whatever. So next morning, got up around the same time, another nice day out in the garden. Why? But I kind of forgot about what had happened the day before. And then I just got this really horrible feeling right the way through my body. I looked up, I'm like, oh, it's there. And that wasn't a good feeling.
Yeah.
Straight away I thought, well, it's not, I didn't think. Straight away I knew that I was being observed. Even though it was, I'd say it was at least a mile away, at least.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Even though it was that distance away, it's in the exact same spot. It wasn't the star, it wasn't the moon, it was nothing like that. You could clearly see it was metal and it was reflecting.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, I got that horrible, horrible feeling. It's like, that's watching me. And I just thought, out of everyone possible, the hundreds of thousands of people that it could be looking at, why is it picking me?
Yeah.
I just did the rabbits. I looked back up, it's still there, went straight in the house. I sent the kids to check the rabbits. Then next few days, I just wouldn't go back into the garden.
When you witness this for the first time, I'm going to ask you the obvious question, really. What coin would have covered it, held at arm's length? For example, would a 5p?
Yeah, easily. It wasn't.
Would a 5p
was
would have
not
covered it, held at arm's length?
I'm trying to. So I'm just going to see if I've got anything that would.
Well, you've got a black thing in your ear there, mate. What's that?
So yeah, so I can get my little finger in that. So
yeah,
a pen nib. Right,
got you.
So if you've got a pen nib, I know you can't really see it, looking
To
at
make it
it.
out, yeah. I know how big they are, yeah.
So how the size you see that now, that's how big it was in the sky. So what, 2-3 mil?
Right. What made you think it was metallic?
I could just see the light reflect bouncing off it.
Right, okay.
Do you know what I mean? Do you like on the
Any noises?
nothing? Only the traffic that's going past, and obviously people walking around the back because there's one more street behind where we live. There's nothing, but it just the second day as I was looking at it, it just, Joe, when you just get that silence, it draws in.
Yeah.
It was that, but that could have been in my head because I wasn't thinking of anything else. I just thought it's and I know it's looking at me. It wasn't, oh, wonder what it's doing. It's like I just knew something was not right. But I'm not. I was just gonna say, I'm not saying it was a bad encounter. It's just because I knew it was there at that moment. I knew I was being observed.
Yeah, it's quite interesting now. I mean, Jenny Randall's called it the Oz factor. It's quite interesting how often what the silence, which is called the Oz factor, actually occurs when people report sightings. You know, I mean, there are many different sightings from the past where this has happened. You know, so you're not on your own there, and I would say that's a fascinating sighting. I mean, the one I saw, my first one, as I said, it was just a pinprick of light. Although when I think back now, and granted it's getting on for 50 years ago next year, I cannot remember a noise. I remember being up there on that mud mound with the lads and the guys, you know, playing war, as I mentioned before. But I cannot remember now any sounds whatsoever. It was like I was fascinated with that light moving across the sky, you know, after it started leapfrogging. And that was fascinating. And when I saw what I call the orb split into two at the banks of the River Humber, you know, again, I can't remember a sound. There were three of us there who witnessed that. And I think all three of us were kind of like taken aback. Whether the silence was just there because of the time of the night and the fact that we were all taken aback, I don't know, but I didn't hear anything else. And just a few minutes before that, we were listening to people because we was at, you know, the back of the British Aerospace factory at the banks of the River Humber, and there were security guards watching us. Now, where did they all go? Did they see anything at that particular time? You know, coming down across the river, and it's about a mile and a half wide at that point. You know, and it's weird how that Oz factor does occur.
Yeah. Right. So that's pretty much everything you're going to cover in the book, because if you give too much away, what's the point of selling it?
Exactly. You know, we could sit here and talk about it for 2 or 3 hours, there's no point in buying it then. You know, and as I said, the main idea is really it's a refresher, bit of a refresher course. It's good to reignite the information, and it's good to, you know, refresh everything for new people and old people. And rest assured, you know, that any money made from this helps to fund British ufology, in the fact that I do a regular, you know, not monthly. I wish monthly conferences, mate. And my head would go if I did that. I do. It's already gone. I do regular yearly conferences, so you know, it'd be great to fund all that. And if people want to purchase a copy of the book, if they go to Flying Disc Press, there's a link on there. I'm sure there is, which is that'll take you straight to Amazon, or you can go to Amazon directly, and you can look for just do a search, Chris Evers book. And it'll take you to the page. That's the cover there, and my background, my picture as well, I think, is the cover as well. And I'd like to thank Ronnie Kinsella for doing that cover for me. That's absolutely brilliant piece of artwork that he did. And look on there. You can buy it as a Kindle, and you can buy it as a hardback or a softback. But please, if you're going to buy it as a book, not as a Kindle, because you know you can't beat the feel and the smell of that, you know, that new paper in the form of a book. It's a lot better. 216 pages. plenty of information in there. There's plenty of images, and I think there's something like maybe 40 or 50 images in there, and there's about 60 or 70 different UFO cases. So there's plenty of information in there for people to get their hands on, and get yourself brought up to date, more or less.
Yeah.
Also, as you know, Andy, I do Outer Limits magazine, which
Yes.
is every 2 months. The next one's due February the 1st. It's a PDF-based production, anything from 80 to 100 pages, and that is you can subscribe to that. Again, it helps fund conferences. You can subscribe for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. If 3 years, you get 18 issues, one every 2 months for 3 years. And that, I'm not going to lie, it's £27.50, but you actually make a bit of a saving on the annual yearly cost, which is what, £10.50 or £11.50 for a year. So you save a few quid doing it that way. And, get yourselves to the next OLM conference, folks, which is, it's a few months away. The 14th of September 2024. I nearly said the 24th because I'm thinking of the year. And get along to that. Paul Sinclair, myself, Ronald Kinsella, Graham Rendell, and I'm working on a few others as well. We've got Jason Gleaves coming as well. So I'm working on a few others. I'm hoping that we can get a big surprise sorted out for people as well. There's awards given, just friendly atmosphere. There's no egos at an OLM conference whatsoever. Nice and friendly. Everybody gets on. Get yourselves over, and for that, you can find information on www.olm-mag.co.uk, and just go to subscription part or the conference 2024 part, and all the information that we do and we're involved with goes up on there.
Yeah, and if anyone watching this can't remember what Chris just said, like myself, you can go onto my website, which is just below my name. It's www.andydecodes.com. Scroll down on the homepage and it'll come up with Chris's website and magazine page. Is it magazine page? Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
And then you can click on there. It shows you where to join. I think I've even set it up so you can just click on it. So it goes. I've done it so it goes straight to membership, just to make it easier than having to navigate through every page to find it. I just did a shortcut for it, so it'll take you straight to it.
Yeah, just a quick reminder, just when you go to the website, always remember to email me with what your specific requirements are, whether it's for you're a subscriber and you're asking for tickets, or you're a non-subscriber asking for tickets, or again, if you're going to subscribe to the magazine itself, the publication itself, tell me how long you want to subscribe for, 1, 2, or 3 years. I'll then send you a relevant invoice. Once that's paid and up to date, I'll then send you the information that you require.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all that. Is there anything else you want to add before we draw this to an end?
Well, we're between Christmas and New Year at the moment, so I'll say kind of a belated Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas to everybody for 2023, and also have enjoyable and safe New Year's Eve 2024. Happy Hogmanay to all our Scottish viewers, and we'll see you in 2024. All the best to you, Andy. Thank you very much for your time, for inviting me on to discuss these various topics, and hope to speak to you sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you're coming on the 24-hour podcast, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
A month.
Yes.
A month. Month today. Oh, a month yesterday, I think. 26. I've not got anything wrote down, so I think it's 26th, 27th.
Okay.
So all that. No, 25th. Totally wrong. 25th, 26th. I'm not working that week pretty much.
I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag, Wandy. How long have we been trying to arrange this interview?
2 months.
About that, yeah. I kept forgetting it, and you kept forgetting it. So we're both getting old, mate. That's all I'm gonna say.
So yeah, so that's why it's on a pre-record, just because we've had to do it in between Christmas and New Year, because I wanted to get it out before New Year. Don't leave it too late. So I'm not sure what day I'm going to be putting this out. Probably at some point over the weekend. So it should be out before the end of the year. So if not, Happy New Year, everyone. And thank you again, Chris, for thank us both for eventually organising this. And do you know what? It was easier to organise a 24-hour podcast and get you on air. And you come in on there, and you helped me with that as well. So what can I say?
No.
Yeah, so thank you for that as well. Right, everyone. Have a great whatever you're doing after listening to this, and please do tune in again on our next one, and it's going to be back to Wednesdays and Fridays at 8 p.m. UK time. So take care, everyone, and goodbye.